All right, guys, this is episode 3 of the Novatech saga, the Novatech debacle, the deep dive into Novatech FX. Now, first and foremost, we had episode 1 where we went over AWS mining. We talked about everything having to do with AWS mining, and that was the forerunner of Novatech. That was the company where we had the first appearance of Cynthia and Eddie Pettion. They were high up in the roster of the people who were promoting that particular company. That company went down, bit the dust. The leaders fled to Dubai, and they said they were coming back, but never did. Almost exactly par for par, the same thing that happened later with Novatech FX. Then we got into episode 2, which talked about the actual beginnings, right? The first appearance of when Novatech FX actually came out back in 2019. And now today, we're going to be talking about how and why Novatech FX blew up and got so big and caught fire. How it happened, right? And there's a couple of different ways that it happened. Number one, we had the lockdowns from the beer bug. And number 2, we had the tight-knit church communities, right? Those two things, along with the infiltration of Novatech and the idea of cryptocurrency, as well as the Bitcoin bull run that was happening at the time, it was like the magic sauce. It was like the secret ingredients all came together. It was perfect timing for this company, right? That had been previously pretty much, it was unknown, to take off and then go mainstream, right? And it was also, it had a lot to do with the way that it was first being promoted. Novatech FX was a dangerous and risky crypto trading MLM, right? Multi-level marketing situation. But they said they were not an MLM, and they were positioning themselves in the community as a safe and reliable hedge fund, right? Now, that brings us into Lisa's story. Now, Lisa's name is not actually Lisa. I changed her name because I really don't want to use this person's real name, right? And I'm going to be very careful because I'm doing this on a live broadcast. So it's not like I'm going to be able to edit it out, right? If I make the mistake. But we're going to talk about the beer bug. We're going to talk about 2020. And we're going to talk about somebody named Lisa. Okay. Lisa was a working professional woman, right? In the world of corporate, right? In the corporate world, very successful until you had the shutdowns, right? Now we all know what happened. It came in, and all of a sudden, just like that, everything started getting shut down. People had to stay at home. People had to wear masks. People had to social distance, right? And Lisa, unfortunately, caught the bug at the beginning. And she was one of the bad cases, right? So she ended up actually in a hospital bed on a ventilator. Lost the job, lost the money, lost her health. There she is on a hospital bed on a ventilator, right? And when she started to get better, when she started to recover, somebody, probably from the church community, offered her an opportunity that she pretty much decided was going to be her solution. right? And that opportunity was called Novatech FX, right? So the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, right? She had the bug. She's in the hospital. She's on the ventilator. She's starting to get better, and somebody probably from the church community, because remember, Cynthia Petion was a self-described reverend. She called herself the Reverend CEO. And part of the reason why Novatech exploded is because it caught fire in the church. Now, when something see, here is what typically happens in the church, right? From the perspective of anybody, right? You don't have to be a Christian to understand. You can be on the outside looking in, and you can still see that the church catches on to fads just like the world does. Like, so, somebody gets popular, right? And then the whole church goes after that person for a while, right? Which is really ungodly and evil when you think about it, because we're not supposed to worship idols. Hello, right? But it happens over and over again. The cult of personality happens in the church. This person gets famous. This company gets famous. This thing gets popular. The flag waving. All of a sudden, everybody's waving flags, or the swords. They had the swords at one point where everybody had to have a sword. Just stuff like that. It goes through the whole church. It's a fad. It's like a fire. It goes through the whole church, and that's what happened with Novatech. It just caught on because of some very wise and frankly kind of slippery marketing tactics that were happening, right? And that marketing tactic was this: hey, the world has hedge funds, right? But for average people like you and me, we're not able to get into the hedge fund because we don't have enough money, right? To get into a normal traditional hedge fund, you have to have millions of dollars. And if you're able to leverage millions of dollars, then you can make more millions. That's why the rich stay rich. There's nothing wrong with that. That's true. But here's where the problem came in. When they took this risky crypto platform called Novatech and they said that it was a safe and secure alternative hedge fund for the rest of us. A Festivus for the rest of us, right? A Festivus for the rest of us, right? It's for the rest of us, right? It's a hedge fund that we can get in, and we don't need to have millions of dollars. We could have $1,000. We could have $500. Heck, we could have $50. As long as we're willing to pay the $25 a month fee. And it just caught on because people were stuck in their houses. People massively were losing their jobs. Massive lockdowns, massive job loss, economic crash, economy crashed. And right at that time, here comes Novatech, and they're paying on average 3% a week. And it's working. Guys, it's working. See, that's the story behind the story that doesn't get told a lot. People want to say that Novatech FX was this big scam. But at the time, for the people who were making money during the shutdowns, during the lockdowns, after they lost their job, they didn't think of it as a scam. They thought of it as the solution. Now, that's Lisa's story. Lisa, to Lisa, Novatech saved her financial life because she made the investment, she was getting the returns. Then she decided to share it in her community, and she became a high-powered leader and a high-powered promoter. So not only was she getting the ROIs from what she put in, but she was also making a lot of money on the MLM side from promoting the platform, which is what happened with a lot of people. Now, the truth is, and we're going to get to this in a later episode, but ultimately, at the end of the day, only a few people actually came out on top with Novatech. And full disclosure, I was one of them. Okay, I was one of them. Yes, me, Vaughn, here at the Unlimited Freedom Network. I didn't make millions. All right, I didn't make millions, but I did come out on top. And you're gonna find out why as we get into the later episodes. But for the purposes of this episode, what you have to understand is that Lisa found an answer to her prayers, right? And she got back up without missing a beat. And from the comfort of her own home, she's promoting this Novatech FX. She's making money every week. She's telling her friends. She's telling her family. She is building a huge team, right? So she went from almost dying, losing everything, to being right back on top of the world because of joining this company, Novatech FX, which was positioned to her as a safe hedge fund, an alternative hedge fund, right? And it was also blowing through the church like a wind, like the latest fad, the latest wind, the latest, trend, Novatech FX. It was the Christian person's answer, right? It was the church person's answer to what was going on at the time, which was a scare from the virus and people just losing money and economic destruction, right? And then you look at Bitcoin and it's pumping. So why not get into crypto? Everybody's getting into it, right? Everybody's becoming a millionaire off of the Bitcoin pump. That was happening at the time. Now that dumped too, right? I mean, look, nobody's calling Bitcoin a scam. Well, some people still call Bitcoin a scam, but most people aren't calling Bitcoin a scam. But Bitcoin pumped and dumped. Same thing that happened with Novatech. It pumped, and then kind of just disappeared, right? All of a sudden, they just stopped paying. And we'll get to that. We're going to break down everything. We're going to give you all of the reasons in this episodic event at the Unlimited Freedom Network. There's no way to give you the entire sauce about Novatech in one video, right? There's no way to just say it all in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or even an hour. We need to do a deep dive, right? And that's what we're on right now, right? We are on that deep dive. And I'm going to get into the chats, and I want to answer your questions, but we have to finish this segment. So bear with me, and I'm going to get with you guys and answer all of your questions. Now, if you do have questions or comments, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. You can also drop them in the comment section if you're watching this when it's no longer live, right? Like if you're watching the replay or if you're watching the actual episode when that comes out here at the Unlimited Freedom Network. Now, let me tell you another story. Let's call this guy Joe the Plumber, right? No, Joe, right? Joe the Plumber, right? Let's just call him Joe. Now, Joe had a background in sales, and no, it's not me. I'm not talking about myself here, okay? Lisa's not me, and Joe's not me, okay? I never had the bug, right? And this particular story is not my story, but we're gonna call this guy Joe. Now, Joe had a background in sales. This is the year 2020. Right? This is when all hell is breaking loose on Earth, right? And this is where Novatech started to explode. This is episode 3 in the Novatech saga, right? We covered episode 1, we covered episode 2. We're now talking about episode 3, where Novatech blew up, exploded, and took in just millions and millions of dollars, guys. Millions. Joe was a life insurance agent. He worked for a little company called Primerica. Now, Primerica, some people love it, some people hate it, but it's an MLM. It's a multi-level marketing company that deals with the selling and policy serving of life insurance. You sell life insurance and you build a team of life insurance agents underneath you. It's called Primerica, right? It's one of the most popular, most successful MLMs in American history. And he worked for Primerica, Joe. The problem is, he would build big teams in Primerica, but he couldn't. You see, he had an ability. He had the gift of gab. He had the ability to connect with people, to communicate with people, and ultimately to sell people life insurance policies, right? He had, and then to service the policies. Hey, Joe had that ability, but he couldn't reproduce that ability. So he would build big teams, but the teams that he was building did not have the same kind of success that he was having because they couldn't do what he could do, right? They couldn't connect with people the same way that he could. They didn't have the communication ability that he had. They couldn't sell. So he could sell the policies, he could build the team, but he couldn't reproduce the ability to sell. So you know what Joe did? He moved on to something else. And he got into a multi-level marketing trading operation that dealt with trading, right? Forex trading. He learned the business. He got good at the business. And no, once again, this isn't me, right? A similar story, right? But not me. He built a big team. But he made the lion's share of his money through trading. He made money trading because he was a good trader. See, he was a good life insurance salesman. Then he learned how to be a good trader. Built a big team. But what happened? Can anybody guess? He could trade and he could build a team, but he couldn't reproduce the ability to trade. And because the team that he built couldn't trade, just like his previous teams couldn't sell life insurance, he had a problem. He couldn't get the teams to stay on board because they couldn't trade. So they weren't able to do it. So he was able to do the life insurance, no problem, but he couldn't reproduce that. He was able to trade, no problem, but he couldn't reproduce that. And then Joe found a company that required absolutely no skill whatsoever to make money. It's a godsend, right? Because now he didn't have to count on people being able to sell life insurance. He didn't have to count on people having to learn how to trade and being able to be good traders. No, he didn't have to count on any of that. He found a company called Novatech FX. And Novatech FX had an alternative hedge fund, a safe and secure hedge fund that was paying 3% a week on average, where people could compound, and everybody who signed up, his entire team, could make money. By the way, Joe was also plugged into the church, just like Lisa was plugged into the church. And they shared it with the church. He shared it with his old life insurance team. Boom, now they're making money. He shared it with his old trading team. Boom, now they're making money. He shared it with the church. Now everybody all of a sudden is making, give or take, 3% a week. And they're surviving during the season of the pandemic. They're surviving. They're thriving. And everybody is making money. And especially the people who are sharing this hedge fund, this crypto hedge fund, this cryptocurrency boom. We're all watching Bitcoin explode. But now they found Novatech. And everyone's making money. And they're putting in more money. And they're bringing in their family. They're bringing in their church. I did it, guys. Everybody got swept up into it. 2020 was beautiful. Into 2021, beautiful. Until all of a sudden, nearing the end of the year 2021, nobody knew it at the time, but the party was about to be over. And we will continue this in episode 4 of the Novatech saga.